Matthew 19 features a shift in Jesus' journey as he moves toward Jerusalem. In this chapter, he teaches about marriage and divorce, children, wealth, and discipleship. Jesus challenges cultural norms and deepens the understanding of God's kingdom values. In verses 1 through 12, the Pharisees test Jesus by asking if it is lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any reason. Jesus points them back to God's original design in Genesis. A man shall leave his father and mother, and the two shall become one flesh. He teaches that divorce was permitted because of hardness of heart, but it was not God's intention from the beginning. Divorce is only permitted for sexual immorality, and remarriage after wrongful divorce is considered adultery. Jesus also speaks about celibacy and singleness, noting that some choose it for the sake of the kingdom. The key message is that divorce is something that should not be taken lightly. In verses 13 through 15, people bring children to Jesus, but the disciples rebuke them. Jesus welcomes the children, saying, "The kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." This story is also in Mark chapter 10. The key message is that Jesus is reaffirming that we need to have childlike faith. In verses 16 through 22, a wealthy young man asks Jesus, "What good thing must I do to gain eternal life?" Jesus tells him to keep the commandments, a reference to the original 10 Commandments. Then challenges him to sell all he has, give to the poor, and follow him. The man leaves sorrowful, unwilling to part with his wealth. This story is also in Mark chapter 10. The key message is the illustration of the spiritual dangers of clinging to possessions. In verses 23 through 26, Jesus says it is very hard for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. He compares it to a camel going through the eye of a needle. The disciples ask, "Who then can be saved?" Jesus replies, "With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." This story is also in Mark chapter 10. The key message is that salvation is impossible through human effort, but entirely possible with God. In verses 27 through 30, Peter asks what the disciples will receive for leaving everything to follow Jesus. Jesus promises thrones of judgment for the apostles and eternal rewards for all who have made sacrifices for his sake. He ends with this important line, "Many who are first will be last, and many who are last will be first." This story is also in Mark chapter 10. The key message is that in God's kingdom, humility triumphs over status and worldly measures of greatness. There are 5 key themes in Matthew chapter 19. 1. God's design for marriage. Jesus upholds the sanctity and permanence of marriage. 2. Kingdom humility. Children represent the kind of trust and humility required to enter God's kingdom. 3. True discipleship. Following Jesus may require giving up material wealth or other attachments. 4. Salvation by grace. Eternal life is not earned by works, but is possible only through God. 5. Rewards in the kingdom. God sees the sacrifices his followers make, and he will reward them, though not always as the world would expect. Matthew 19 follows Jesus as he teaches about the heart behind discipleship. He affirms God's original design for marriage as a lifelong covenant. He blesses little children and declares that the kingdom belongs to the humble who come like them. When a rich young man asks about eternal life, Jesus exposes his attachment to wealth, leading the man to walk away sorrowful. Jesus teaches his disciples that salvation is impossible through human effort, but possible with God, and he assures them that all who sacrifice for his sake will receive far greater reward in God's kingdom. Chapter 19 challenges us to ask ourselves 3 important questions. Am I holding anything back from fully following Jesus, especially material wealth, status, or comfort? Do I come to God with childlike humility and trust? Do I believe that God sees and will reward faithful sacrifice, even if the world does not?